start with the, I guess first we'll, for the record, Commissioner Wiseman is absent. First thing on the agenda is approval of December invoices. If everybody's had time to look at it, we'll take a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the invoices for December.
Motion by Mr. Shirley. Second. And a second by Mr. Caldwell. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Next will be the approval of the December 11th, 2014 minutes. I think we had one thing on that. Was on that.
Trying to remember who.
Last page. Stephen, didn't you make that second on that?
I think I seconded it. I'm trying to think who made the motion. Though.
I did.
You made the motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we both kind of motioned at the same time, I think. So I think that's what I was remembering.
Yeah.
So we'll put Mr. Smith in there on that. If there's any other changes, need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Caldwell. Second by Ms. Hall. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion approved.
Excuse me, Rob. You said there was a change made to them?
Well, on the back page,
Page 8.
where it was,
There's a blank left in there, seconded by
on the second there.
page 8 of our minutes.
I don't see a blank on mine.
Motion by Jones, second by.
His says Shirley and Holland.
Yeah, we had talked about it at workshop, and I think Mary might have made correct the minutes and fill in the blank. Because we talked
This is
about
supposed to say
it at workshop, we
Jones
weren't.
and Smith.
I think we guessed at it being Janet made the motion and John made the second. We
Or,
could have been wrong.
or vice versa. So what you're saying is it should be motion Jones, second Smith?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. And that was part of the motion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, that's done then. Thank you.
Next be the approval of the January agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve January agenda.
I
Motion by
second.
Shirley,
I second.
second by Ms. Mizell. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Now we have items for postponement and withdrawal.
We did have one additional postponement. It was under new business. The Hillendale's going to change the postponement till next month.
So we need a motion on that too. So we need a motion for the postponement of the Hillendale.
I move we approve the items for postponement and withdrawal.
Motion by Mr. Smith,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Shirley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. We don't have a consent agenda, so we don't have any business tonight?
No regular business. We have to accept the audit report, which was presented at workshop by Mr. Greg McClavick from our CPA firm that did our audit. He found no irregularities, so we had a clean audit. We went through it at workshop. Regina has a copy of it there if y'all thought you wanted to look through it. I think we brought an extra couple copies, so we went through it all at workshop. If you had any additional questions, we could try and answer them. Otherwise, we just need a vote to accept the audit report.
Yeah.
I have no questions. I just want to, for the record, our CPA, I feel like is doing a very good job. He's very cordial, very informative. He did a very good job, and I'm glad we could work it out for him to come to the workshop versus type one of his evenings away from home. Worked out good.
Yeah,
If we'd have had more commissioners there, it'd have been great.
And I talked to Frank, and he just had back surgery this past week, so he's going to be out for a little while, but he'll be back at the next monthly
Good.
workshop. He said he would have made it today, but he's taking pain medication. He didn't want to say anything. But anyway, so he's had surgeries. And then I think the other members are going to try and make it, although Regina did mention that she has a class. She's taking a class, so she's going to have to miss the next couple.
It turns out I'm only gonna miss February,
Just February. Okay.
the way that falls. So,
Other than that, we hope to have everybody back at workshop.
I think that's very crucial to have people there.
And Charlie did mention that he would make it from now
Okay.
on.
Good, Charlie.
That was with a hump at the end of it.
So I guess if we don't have any questions on the audit, we'll need a motion to approve the audit.
I make a motion to approve the 2013-2014 audit.
Motion by Ms. Mizell,
Second.
second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. The last item of business, we had an HB 55 presentation. We hope it'll be in the 30-minute range. Shouldn't go much longer than that, but we thought we'd take this opportunity to help you all get your HB 55 hours. So Matt was gonna present on complete streets. We know it's an issue you might be interested in, and we thought you should hear a little bit more about complete streets and the benefits of complete streets. So.
So,
Can we do one thing? I think Charlie's wanting to leave. I was gonna ask him about that email question. Charlie, before you leave, I have a question about emails and us receiving emails from the planning staff on our personal email. Is that advisable, or should we have separate emails? Because if somebody was to have an open records request on that.
It's been different than letters, is it?
I can't really think right off of any situation where those emails will be anything but preliminary, either updates to staff reports or something like that. It's not going to be any kind of final action. And as such, it would be exempt from an open records request. And certainly any kind of request, and again, I can't imagine how something would be in those emails that would be open records appropriately. But if there were, it would have to be a request that's very specific, literally geared to that email or to that series of emails. I really don't see that. I'll try to think about that and see if I'm maybe overlooking something. But I really don't think that's a problem, not where that's concerned, and probably not anyway, because we're not likely to have, and maybe we just need to instruct staff, anything that might conceivably be of any kind of proprietary information or anything of that sort of thing that would not be appropriate for dissemination. Otherwise, these accidents can happen. That needs to stay out of these emails. Otherwise, it'll just be preliminary things which wouldn't be open records anyway, nor would they be of any particular problem if they did get exposed to somebody. I'll think about that,
Okay.
but I don't think so.
Okay. Sorry about that, Matt.
no problem. No problem. So, like Joe mentioned, I'm going to talk about complete streets for a bit. This is something that we've been thinking about a little bit as we start to work on the bike ped plan, which a couple of you are kind enough to sit on our advisory committee for that. So just to start off, what are complete streets? Simple way to put it is that complete streets are for everyone, regardless of who you are or by what mode of transportation you travel. As you can see in this example, there's a bike lane, there's marked crosswalks. This photo example even has a bus over here, as well as adequate vehicular transportation being provided for. So a more, a complete definition of what a complete streets policy would be is that you're ensuring that the entire right-of-way is planned for. Okay, a lot of times maybe there's a little bit of extra room that doesn't get used where a sidewalk could be put in so that pedestrians could have access. Maybe, a street is planned too wide, and it could be just one lane in each direction with a turn lane and bike lanes, and that would be sufficient for, providing for multiple modes of transportation. So really it's about making sure that, all users, can use the streets. Streets provide many benefits. It allows people to, travel long distances, short distances, access our shops, schools, and stores. Complete street policies can benefit older users. I looked up today, the Kentucky State Data Center shows that by 2025, more than 1 in 5 citizens in Scott County will be 60 years or older, and I think it was the Census Bureau has reported that half of all non-drivers over the age of 65 would like to get out more often. Whether that means that they're walking, they're driving. Complete streets can provide better access for everyone. So one of the ways that complete streets can provide for older citizens is, it can slow vehicles down where necessary. In downtown areas, that could mean longer signal changes, providing for easier access to cross the streets. It can mean wider shoulders in a lot of places, which provide better sight visibility for turning in and out of entrances, turning onto streets and things of that nature. It can mean more bulb outs to provide for safer pedestrian crossings, more lighting, signage, and pavement markings. Also, complete streets, by providing this access and this level of safety, it can allow older citizens of our county to stay active more often, more and be more involved in the community. Maybe they can attend more planning commission events and that sort of thing. So how does it benefit children? 17% of kids and teens in the U.S. are obese. Limited physical activity and contributes to this every day. We see the built environment in many places here in the United States limits transportation to car only. When you don't provide sidewalks and there's no bike lanes, it's hard for children to even walk to their friend's house in the same neighborhood or walk to school, that sort of thing. So if you're able to dedicate safe space for bicycle and walking, it can help children to make some of those shorter trips safely and in a more active way that that maybe they can burn some calories, that sort of thing. It can provide benefits for the disabled population. We're talking about things like sidewalk ramps, signals that help the visually impaired to cross the street, things of that nature. So it's paying attention to that level of detail that allows for this segment of the population to get around much more easily. This can reduce the amount of dependence that they might have on public transportation or friends and family to transport them. If they can maybe make it to a doctor's appointment or go to a shop down the street or something of that nature, that they don't have to rely on others to transport them. And also it can reduce the amount of isolation that they might face if they can go over to a friend's house much more easily and safely. So some of the benefits, we've looked at a little bit at how this benefits different groups in the community. So how does this benefit the community overall? These categories are things that we're going to address fairly quickly here. So in 2010, there were over almost 33,000 traffic fatalities in the U.S. More than 2/3 of those involved people in cars. 4,300 were people walking, and just over 600 were people on bicycles. More than 40% of pedestrian fatalities occur where there's no available crosswalk. In addition, in this example here, in addition to there being no crosswalk, as you can see here on the, I just switched the source. There we go. Sorry. You can see there's no sidewalks really. I mean, there might be some here on the right side of the street, But the left side of the street, there's no sidewalks, there's no crosswalks for these individuals, and as far as the eye can see to cross the street here. So this is a great example of how more than 40% of the fatalities occur when there's no sidewalk or crosswalk. This graph just briefly goes over how reducing the speed in areas where it's necessary can save lives. When the speed limit is 40 miles an hour, as you can see, there's fatalities 80% of the time when a vehicle strikes a person. Here on Main Street in Georgetown, the speed limit is 25. That would essentially mean that there'd be a fatality maybe roughly 10% of the time. If we could get people to drive the appropriate speeds, that can improve safety tremendously. So, a study done by the Federal Highway Admission came up with these statistics that you see here. You can reduce the number of pedestrian crashes by 88% simply by providing sidewalks. Same thing here: 69% with a hybrid beacon, 39% with medians to make it safer for people to stop halfway if they need to, and 29% with road conversions such as road diets. Moving on to some of the health benefits, as you can see here, the percent obesity along the left-hand side and the percent walk, bike, or using transit. The U.S. is over here at least on this chart, as the most obese country, and as well, we have the lowest percent of people walking, biking, and using transit. This doesn't necessarily mean that there's a relationship. Simply, we wanted to show that there is definitely a correlation between these two sets of data. I think this is from who I can't remember who did this study. The American Journal of Preventive Medicine published an article showing that there's related to the risk of obesity. There's a 6% increase in your chance for obesity for every hour that you spend in a car each day, and you can decrease that by 4.8% for each kilometer that you walk every day. So if we were able to provide an environment where people could walk more, be in their car less, we could help the obesity epidemic that's sweeping through this country. Just another example of some of the health benefits we have here. So this chart here shows the number. I think it's the percent of the population ever told that they had diabetes here in the blue, and then on the right here, I guess that's a red color, we have the percent of trips to work by bicycle or on foot. As you can see here, I circled where Kentucky is. So we have roughly a little over 11% of the population has been told at some point that they have diabetes, whereas we only have maybe 3% of Kentuckians are making trips to work by bicycle or foot. This year's, I think I've actually seen this one at a conference we've been to before. If you look at the trends for obesity in the U.S., the interesting thing to note here is, as we go on and look at different years, since this is starting in 1990, the colors on the scale don't change. They just simply have to keep adding additional categories as the country as a whole becomes more and more obese. So here, Kentucky falls into the 15 to 19% range, now in the over 20% range. And this one, they fall in the 25 to 29% range. And then as of 2010, Kentucky, over 30% of Kentuckians were obese. So how do we combat that? Complete streets can be a step forward in that. Studies have shown that women who walk or bike 30 minutes a day have a lower risk of breast cancer. 30-minute round trip bicycle commute has been shown to have better mental health effects in men. And people who live in walkable neighborhoods get more exercise than those who do not. I mean, that could mean just simply having sidewalks in every neighborhood, having those neighborhoods connect, having those sidewalks or bike access connect to nearby stores can help provide that that exercise. This section we'll go through fairly quickly. There's definite economic benefits to complete streets. I actually spent some time this afternoon trying to find examples where people had reported on the economic benefits in communities more the size of Georgetown and Scott County. It turns out that it's a lot more popular to publish articles related to large cities, such as this one is from Washington, D.C. They have this street here, as you can see on the left. In 2003, 2004, they had invested $8 million of public money to redevelop it, provide better access and safer access for pedestrians. And the result here you can see on the right. It's a much more friendly and inviting streetscape. And what that allowed them to do is it allowed them to have 32 new businesses come in on that street. So definite economic benefit there. Here in California, once again, you've got a kind of in the background here, you've got a before look at how it looked. I think in this one they reported that automobiles regularly traveled 40 to 50 miles an hour down this street. Through a series of things, including $10 million public investment, added landscape and changing of the signal timing, they were able to transform it into this scene that you see here behind the text. They reduced the speeding. They were able to provide much safer access for pedestrians to cross. 50 new businesses came into the area, and they now have a vacancy rate along this street of 4%. Also, very big is this increased sales tax revenue that they were able to generate. This one was in New York City. I think it was along 8th and 9th Avenues in Manhattan. By changing the layout and adding a separated bike lane, they were able to make the pedestrians on the sidewalk feel safer, to not have cars zooming past them all the time. They were able to provide access for bicycles and appropriate parking for bicycles. And so, as you can see, this benefited the stores in those areas tremendously. This one I'm kind of skipping over because this talks about how the complete streets and the transit provided more economic benefits. In terms of job creation, a national study done by the University of Massachusetts at Amherst has shown that for every $1 million invested in bicycle project, there's 11.4 jobs created versus 7.8 jobs created for auto-only projects. And as you can see, pedestrian projects also provide a higher rate of jobs than do auto-only projects. This is something that shows up more and more frequently as people turn to look towards, especially downtown areas and areas along major pedestrian access. For every point on the walk score, $500 to $3,000 additional value is frequently seen in home values. And walkable and commercial neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. have 75% higher office rents than drivable suburban neighborhoods. Additional benefits, there have been several studies done on this as well. Millennials tend to want to work in areas where they have more transportation options. They tend to prefer, shorter commutes, and they, according at least on this next slide, they don't really want to work in office parks anymore. Mitch Silver is a well-regarded planner. I think he's the director of the New York City Parks now. As far as capacity goes, I like this slide a lot. If you look at this photo here, this is what 40 cars on this one street looks like, compared to 40 people using public transportation, compared to 40 people riding their bikes. If you can take the same amount of space and increase the options that people have the options that they have and the mode of transportation that they choose. Sometimes you don't have to make the road wider. Sometimes you just have to provide people the opportunity to use a different mode of transportation, and that will solve the transportation problems. Also wanted to point out that in California, that they found that adding capacity, such as adding more lanes to roads, did not result in less congestion. 60 to 70% of increased road capacity was filled with new automobile traffic within 5 years of the roads being expanded. So adding lanes is not the solution. Giving people the opportunity to use different modes, that's a better solution. This is kind of an experiment that the Federal Highway Administration did. They gave 4 communities, I think they divided up $25 million between those 4 communities for 4 years, and gave it to them to improve their non-motorized transportation infrastructure. And so what they found in those communities is that they increased the number of people who were walking by 22%, they bicycling by 49%, and these utilitarian trips that they mentioned here, those are just trips that everyone makes every day, trips to work, trips to the grocery store, to school, things like that. All of the trips being made, by foot and bicycle have increased, and that over 16 million miles were traveled on foot and bicycle that would have been driven that year. Other studies have shown that half the trips in the U.S. are 3 miles or less, and that nearly 30% of all the trips are less than 1 mile. I mean, those are definitely bikeable distances if the infrastructure is in place. So, additional studies have shown that 65% of residents are more likely to walk if a neighborhood has sidewalks. That's additional exercise. That relates back to the slides we saw on the health benefits, getting people out, getting them more exercise. Cities with more bike lanes per square mile have higher levels of bicycle commuting. Just because we don't see it necessarily every day in our community doesn't mean that it doesn't exist or that people won't do it. There's some people out there who are just waiting for the infrastructure. They don't necessarily feel safe riding on the road with a car. They're waiting for a bike lane or some sort of multi-use path that they can take to get around. When they added bike lanes here in Marin County, California, they saw 366% more bicyclists on weekdays, 540% more bicyclists on weekends. When people are getting out riding their bikes, they're exercising, they're improving their health. Some of those bicyclists on the weekend, those might be people from out of town bicycling through the county because now there's that opportunity. Those of us who are on the bicycle advisory committee for our bike ped plan, we hear from these people every time we have a meeting. There's people coming from other counties riding here in Scott County, and we could probably increase that even more if we had better facilities to make more of those casual riders feel more comfortable. So another benefit to providing additional choices, transportation is the second largest expense for families, right behind housing. A lot of times that comes out to, around 18% of their budget. For low-income houses, that can be a much higher percentage, and if you can provide them an opportunity to bike or walk to the places they need to go, that can mean that, maybe they don't fall behind on their rent, or maybe they go out and they buy a couple more things, which helps boost the local economy. So basically, complete streets have that ability to give people more control over their expenses. A lot of people also talk about livable communities. These tend to be happier communities. They're more likely to get out and get to know their neighbors if they have a safe way to get there. They might go participate at an event, here in downtown or in downtown Sadieville, Stamping Ground. And this, when people can interact with their neighbors and feel comfortable in their community and safe getting around, they're going to be happier. They're going to be getting more exercise. It has many benefits. quote from the Secretary of Transportation. And I guess lastly, we'll kind of talk a little bit about some of the environmental benefits of complete streets. Transportation is a huge part of greenhouse gas emissions. This stat down here that was provided to us, you know, for short trips, they define short trips as any trip under a mile. Okay, so these are very short trips we're talking about. If we would switch to walking or biking for all trips under 1 mile, we could cut CO2 emissions by 12 to 22 million tons per year. That's huge. That's a lot of CO2. And one last thing, you know, we can provide cleaner water. Anytime that there's an accident involving, you know, 2 vehicles, or, you know, somebody possibly falls asleep and runs off the road or something, there's that risk that, you know, we're going to get oil, we're going to get gasoline, possibly radiator fluid leaking out of those vehicles, getting into our water, you know, our aquifer recharge areas, things of that nature. If we can have more people biking and walking, the chances of things like that, you know, invading our water and our ground is reduced tremendously. If you want more information on complete streets, there's a couple of really good websites down here. You can call or email either any of the 3 of us. We'd be happy to talk to you about it. And that's all that I had as far as the presentation goes. Oh, thank you.
Did a good
Yeah,
job.
very
Tim.
good job.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Very interesting.
Did you have any questions or?
Do you know of anyone that's looked at our main street? I've often, like I say, a lot of these things matter happening in larger cities. Obviously, when they were way back at the turn of the century, when their main streets or broadways were constructed, they weren't worried about such a wide street area.
Yeah.
And of course, the larger cities seem to have larger space because their sidewalks are, some of them immense, which, you know, I noticed in one of your slides, and I've often thought if we had that on our main street, how it would boost our economy. Outside seating is huge now, and we've got beautiful buildings, but we don't. You know, I'm frustrated that we don't have area for outside seating for people, but. You know, I keep looking at our main street, how we could possibly get close to that.
A square in front of City Hall would be, I know people want the convenience of parking right in front of City Hall.
Yeah.
And the courthouse.
Well, that would be better for them though if they had to park over in the public parking and walk, wouldn't it?
Especially if they do.
And this,
Handicapped people can't do that.
Well, I understand that.
I mean, you can. I don't know. I doubt the business owners on Main Street would want to, but I mean, you could change the angled parking on the south side to parallel parking. That would increase the space that you would have for sidewalks on the south side of the street. I mean, that's something that I think when CDP had kind of looked at the Legacy Trail extension and that branch that would come through the downtown, that's something that they had looked at, is maybe reconfiguring downtown to possibly add a bike lane, and I know they had talked about the possibility that the angled parking could be changed to parallel parking.
Megan, as part of the Main Street program, is working on an alley. It's kind of just an alley initiative. I mean, if you think about public space and creating nice public space where you maybe have outdoor seating and stuff, they started looking at the alleys in downtown. Or something that we could do to make them more public.
More user-friendly.
More, yeah.
One of the complaints that I've heard from several merchants is that the public doesn't necessarily know where the parking lots are. And we have quite a few parking lots downtown, but people don't know where they are. If we can help
you know, that would be a great, I think a great example of that is right here on Main Street, where the little alley turns by Smith Realty, and
There's
you know, and I mean, there's very few. There's probably never, and I'm there a lot. There's never more than 5 or 6 cars in that public parking lot back there.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, people don't know or are used to just parking on Main Street. If they knew, and it was more really neat, some kind of skate through there, I agree with that. That would alleviate a whole lot. I don't know how many spaces are there, but I know that there's rarely more than 4, 5, 6 cars in the whole lot.
Yeah, we've got a little, like a kind of small subgroup of our design committee and some other people who are interested, and we identified that as probably the first place we want to start.
Yeah.
I've got some building owners' contact info. I found out one of them is actually an artist, or their son's an artist, but I need to make some calls. But it seems like there's some real potential there.
Yeah, good.
Some of that lot is
Craven and Lewis.
Craven and Lewis, and some of it is Smith Realties, and they've got it all marked off.
There's a part that's a little farther back though. That's
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
public.
it's all
Yeah,
public.
I park back there
Yeah.
because I'm right across the street because I can't get my other parking lot. So, but yeah, I have to watch where I park, but Doug doesn't say anything to me.
Matt, you mentioned the community this size. How do you earmark money for projects like increasing the sidewalks?
Well, I mean, it starts. I guess it starts with adapting a policy. You know, we're working on the bike ped plan currently. You know, and as part of that, you know, we can make some policy suggestions possibly to the city or to fiscal court regarding sidewalk locations, bike lanes, things of that nature. And in addition to that, you know, mentioning those things and getting the bike ped plan into the hands of the transportation cabinet. There's various ways, but I guess what I'm trying to say is if we have a locally adopted bike ped plan, then the state has to at least consider implementing those facilities anytime that they do work on roads. So if we say that we want bike lanes, I don't know, to extend further south on Broadway than they do now, then when the transportation cabinet goes and, you know, they're going to restripe Broadway or something of that nature, then they have to at least consider, you know, what the local entity has said that they want done with that road.
So would it always have to be state roads, or?
It wouldn't necessarily need to be. You know, small things can be done, you know, such as improving, you know, the sidewalks that exist, you know, repairing some sidewalks that exist, putting sidewalks and crosswalks in where they don't exist now. A lot of the best practices say to develop you know, when you're looking at your projects that you want to accomplish, you break them down into 3 categories: short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And there's plenty of short-term projects that could be done right, you know, as soon as we identify them. Essentially, you know, things like connecting sidewalks, providing crosswalks, things of that nature that don't cost very much money, and can improve people's access tremendously.
Taking out around the area of Walmart, Connector Road, that intersection between Connector and Cherry Blossom. Are there any sidewalks in that area now? I don't think there are there?
In the Walmart area, there are not any drag.
There's no way to safely cross Cherry Blossom on foot, that I know.
I believe there's a striped crosswalk area at that intersection, but there's
No sidewalk leading to it?
There might be on the Walmart, and I'm not sure where.
On the Walmart side, there are some sidewalks.
They come all the way out to that intersection? All right.
Past, what is it, the restaurant?
Charlie's?
Oh, Charlie's, yeah. I think it's on both sides of that. As you go into Walmart and that other shopping area, there's sidewalks on both sides. I'm almost certain. Up to the, yeah. Cherry Blossom.
And right here on Main Street, West Main, some pedestrian was killed last year, I believe, coming up past Kentucky Avenue.
Once you
There's
get
no
past
sidewalk
there,
right
no,
there.
there isn't any. No.
I don't know, that would be a difficult place to add sidewalk at this point. You'd have to build a retaining wall or something and grade out in order to have room.
You could put it on
Yeah, we had talked about that
the
once
incoming,
before.
the
Talked to Joe.
eastbound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the same way, another pedestrian was killed out
Broadway.
going towards Canewood subdivision.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's something that the state, if it's a state road, the state, you know, like Matt said, they have to consider it if it's in our, if we have to put a plan together that says we want these facilities, they have to at least consider it. And, you know, there's a lot of residential development in the area. It makes a lot of sense to spend the money to make the road safe. So the residences can use it, especially if there's a lot of people walking along the side of the road in the ditch. You know, that area by Canewood, it's got that historic stone fence. There's no real place to walk.
25 north is horrendous. From the bridge,
Yeah.
from the
To
creek
high school.
to the high school, horrendous.
Yeah.
Then there's a lot of young pedestrian traffic
A
right
lot of them
there.
walk on the edge of the road just to
Yeah.
avoid getting in the grass.
Yeah,
They don't want to get their feet wet or muddy,
yeah.
and it's dangerous. They don't realize how.
There are grant funds available. I mean, you identify these areas that are priorities. We can apply for grants.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the same grants that we would use to apply for the Legacy Trail extension can also be used for sidewalk improvements, bike improvements, things of that nature. It would be the same grant process.
And then I think in places, the safer spot for a sidewalk there would be beyond the guardrail next to the creek, where that way no one can run off the road and hit a pedestrian because it's blocked by a guardrail. Safer. On 25, yeah. And it might be a prettier path anyhow. You'd be over in the shade if you're walking in the summer.
So as a commission or as a staff, is that in the plan, or how do we get these projects that we're all talking about initiated?
I mean, a lot of them can be initiated through the bike ped plan that we're working on at the moment. I know some of these areas, especially the pedestrian areas, are actually areas that we talked about a little bit at our last meeting. You know, getting specific projects into the plan, I think is very important. But we'd also, you know, we've talked about as part of the plan also, you know, possibly having some policy recommendations, you know, so that we can make sure that, you know, as, you know, a neighborhood or a store goes in, you know, Scott County, that they provide pedestrian access not only along their street frontage, but also to their building. You know, things like that can help, you know, provide those extra modes of transportation that are the goal of complete streets.
I think another thing that would potentially help the city and the county, I don't know if it could be city county funded. We had a grant writer that was either part or full time, somebody that's good at that,
I think the city
writing
used
grants.
that,
That can, there's a lot of money out
Sure
there
we
that's.
do have.
I think the city used to have a grants writer, but
Grants writer, grants administrator, I'm not sure if they're a writer.
Yeah.
They use Bluegrass App a lot for grant writing, but. they do have-
Somebody that's really good at it can, well, and you've got to have some committees together to decide what kind of grants you want to seek or you want to apply for. Especially when it comes to sidewalks and bike lanes or bike paths. There's probably a lot of money out there available, or at least matching grants.
for tonight.
Joe, let me make sure I got this right. Our next workshop will be on the 9th, right? And our meeting on the
believe
12th.
so.
Just
Yeah.
try to make sure everybody's aware when we get there to
Put it
that
on the
meeting.
calendar.
Yeah, 12th is the meeting day, so
So
it'll
the
be the
9th
9th.
is on the
yeah,
Monday. Okay.
at 4:30.
Megan, when's the next bike ped committee meeting?
Thursday next week.
Be the 15th. Okay. Anybody got anything else?
I was just gonna mention, I think at the workshop, we discussed again that we're working on, changing our tree planting requirements.
Yeah, we were.
Been working on that.
We're working on a recommendation on the landscape ordinance, which we'll have next time.
Try to get that to where it's not more stringent than, say, Lexington or other surrounding counties.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'll be ready next month.
I guess if that's all, meeting's adjourned.